Hello, this is Tommy T, and I'm going to be bringing you the first video in my video series, the teas I drink and how I brew them, which is just going to be me showing you the teas I drink on a daily basis, and just showing you the way that I brew them personally. So I wouldn't really say it's instructional or a tutorial video on how to brew tea, but more just showing how I do it on a daily basis. And of course, for the tea, for the first video, I'd have to use Shou Pu'erh. It's one of my most favorite teas. And I also just recently got the basic set from White 2 Tea. So this is the Old Reliable blend. It's a very nice, solid Shou Pu'erh that I've been drinking almost every day. And I pretty much already have everything all set up and good to go. So I already have the leaves and all that measured out. But I might be making a video on like Pu'erh and sort of showing you how I break up my cakes and stuff. But for the sake of this video, I kind of already have it pre-broken up. I guess you really can't see the leaves that well. I'm still trying to work on that. But I also do have my water pre-boiled, so I'm just going to get that in here. And I just have this funnel just to make sure I don't spill tea. Even though this one is actually still quite solid, a chunk. It's probably not even going to fit in there. I'll make it fit. I just want to make sure I didn't get tea all over my table. Because I kind of just want this one to break up inside the teapot. So I think I'll just break it in half and half again, just so it fits in there. Normally I just use the hot water to let it open up, which usually is pretty good. And then I want to make a little bit of room here. And for this setup, it's pretty basic. Well, I guess it was unnecessary to have that to weigh into, but also the bowl and all that stuff is completely unnecessary. The only things I really would need for this setup would just be this teapot and the teacup. Everything else would be slightly optional, including the spout pick. But this teapot does get clogged up pretty often, so I kind of have that on standby. And then the bowl's just to catch extra water. But I do have like a towel under there also, just in case. So then also, this is a Shou Pu'erh. Some people rinse their Shou Pu'erhs at least once, maybe twice. And I'm usually okay with doing it once. And it's usually just enough to cover the leaves and not fill up the teapot all the way, just to kind of get it going. This one is tightly compressed and also pretty new, so I find the rinse really does help, especially just to get it going. So when you make the first and second brew, they're already really strong. So just around like that much, I guess, for a rinse. And then this does pour a bit slow, which is kind of actually why I decided to use it for Shou Pu'erh, because you really can't oversteep Shou Pu'erh too much. So having it pour slow isn't the end of the world. It'd be pretty bad for certain other teas, especially like Wu Yi oolongs and Dansong oolongs, where you don't want to oversteep them. So I kind of just decided to switch this teapot to Pu'erh. And so after the rinse, I just go straight on for the first steep. And with this bowl, I can catch the rinse water. So I kind of save the first rinse, so I can sort of pour it over after. This other way. But so like while this one's steeping, I can move it over a bit. But yeah, while this one's steeping, I kind of just pour this over, sort of give the teapot a little bath, but also does kind of keep it pretty hot. And then steep time, it's usually around 30 seconds or so with this teapot. This is my 2 ounce Yixing clay pot, and it's filled with around 5 or so grams of tea, which I probably should have mentioned before, but that's a pretty good ratio. So even steeping it 30 seconds will make it pretty strong. And then this is just sort of a precaution to make sure it doesn't get clogged. Because it is a single spout teapot, I can almost ensure it's going to get clogged at some point, even if the leaves are pretty new. So I'd say for Shou Pu'erh, the leaves are kind of broken up a bit more. So it's sort of something you really can't avoid too much. So it's probably almost good. I'm not trying to be like too specific, because I usually never am. Besides when it comes to measuring out the tea. But for other things, like the steep time, it's kind of more of a estimate. So that's probably good. And it is still a first steep, so it's pretty light. I thought it actually does look really nice and dark on video and kind of up close. It just wouldn't be too flavorful because it's the first steep, but it's still going to be good. If I didn't give it a rinse first, this probably wouldn't taste like much. So giving it a rinse kind of helps with that. So when you start brewing it, it's already good to go. You don't have to like steep it out a couple times. Although usually around the second and third steep is where gets a lot better. And then I'm also really careful with this lid because it's really fragile and light. You can easily knock it over, so I kind of just want to put it down there. And then I'm not really sure if I'm going to keep this in and me drinking these teas, but I'm just going to give this one a sip. And if you guys don't remember, this is the 2015 Old Reliable blend from White 2 Tea. I would say it's still really hot. With this setup, I guess it's either a downside or a plus is how hot it is. Since there's no serving pitcher, I'll let that cool down for a second, but so there's no serving pitcher, which I normally would pour into before going into the cup. But since this teacup actually holds more tea than the teapot does, it's sort of just easier to pour straight from the teapot into the cup. And there's really not too much sediment. But when you do that, there really isn't as much time for it to cool down as if you put it in a serving pitcher. So with this, it's kind of quicker, but you're going to have to wait for it to cool down. And with the pu'erh tea, I do use boiling water. So it kind of does take a bit. And it's kind of hard to tell with this cup since it's a double-walled cup. But yeah, I'm probably going to cut while that cools down. So I mean, it really didn't take too long to cool down, but I was trying to keep these videos relatively short. So even waiting like a minute or two kind of would make it a bit long. And for this series, I wouldn't say it's extremely focused on drinking of the teas. It's sort of more showing my brewing methods. Like review-wise and sort of tasting notes, I'll probably be saving those for another video. So for this, I'm kind of drinking through these at my own pace, not really saying too much. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to be keeping these parts of it in, but I'm going to do a couple brews though to sort of show you how I do it. Even though the main part really is getting it set up, going through like all the rinses and getting it going. Because pretty much for now, I can actually get it going right now, but I can just keep filling up this teapot and making more tea. And then for this steep, it should actually be stronger than the first one. And since I do have that wastewater bowl under here, I can go ahead and fill this up all the way to the top. So it runs down the sides and kind of keeps it hot. Works out pretty good. And then for this one, I can just make it really nice and strong. Another good thing about Shou Pu'erh is how strong you can make it. So you really don't have to worry about it. Especially this one in particular. I'm really enjoying this one. I've only really had it a couple times, but I'm feeling like it would easily turn into a daily drinker for me. So while that one's steeping, I'll at least finish this one. I must say though, it's really nice and dark. So I mean, it's at least cool enough to sip at a good pace. I would say this one's pretty basic flavor profile. Although it does need to get stronger for that second steep. So then also when that's steeping, I kind of do need to finish this within a certain amount of time. Or I'll just end up with something kind of maybe too strong. I wouldn't say it would be bitter, but stronger than I'd want. But this one is really like nice and earthy. Well, it's got the earthy sort of woody flavor profile, which is something I really do enjoy in my Shou Pu'erh. And something I kind of do like to make it stronger. There's no like bitter or sour notes to it also, which means I really can get away with brewing it pretty strong like this one. Just want to make sure it pours out on a good speed. But I am thinking for these videos, at least 2 or 3 steeps would be optimal to sort of show you how I brew the teas. Because then really after that, it really doesn't change too much. Just a couple of maintenance things after I'm done, like cleaning out the bowls and stuff like that, which is kind of self-explanatory. Well, I guess this kind of is too. To me, I kind of do this pretty often. It's nothing too new to me. But yeah, so everything's still quite heated up. So the second brew, everything's a lot hotter, especially the tea. It won't cool down as quickly. But I'm hoping I'll be able to sip it. And then also I do sort of make sure I take the lid off between steeps. I feel for a tea like this, it really won't make a huge difference. But if you were drinking like a green tea or something more fragile, I'm feeling like you could basically cook the leaves if you kept the lid on. So in between the steeps, I sort of just like to have the tea air out, like while I'm sipping this one. Well, maybe this one won't be too hot. So I at least didn't heat up the kettle again. Once I get the kettle to boiling, it sort of does keep it at a certain temperature for a decent amount of time. So yeah, luckily this one is really drinkable. And it is noticeably stronger than the other one. But it's still really smooth. There's no bitterness to it. No astringency. I would say I'm getting more of the earthy tones now, which is another thing I really like in my pu'erhs. I'm making them strong to the point where you get that earthiness, which I'd say is a lot different than the fermentation pile taste, which isn't a good thing. So this tea is really clean. It's got all the flavors I'm really looking for a daily drinking Shou Pu'erh. It's just really pleasant to drink, and I'm really happy I have like a lot of this one left. So I'm going to save the last bit of that for a second while we get this third and final steep going. So of course this is only the third and final steep for the video. I'm probably going to be having this one after as well. I was just looking to be able to enjoy teas like sort of off video and off stream. So I still can do that just for like the last couple steeps. Which is sort of why this video series right now isn't really about me drinking teas. Although I'm still drinking at least 3 cups, I'd say. Well, it's like less than 3 because this teapot isn't too big. So I'm going to like really steep that one out and make it strong. And then kind of usually does peak after the third steep. But I found for this tea, with this ratio, it does stay a bit stronger for longer, which is good. So I'm just going to finish this one up. It's actually got a little bit of a sweet sort of aftertaste to it as well, which is good. So basically this is one that is the blend of all the other ones. I think I'll be doing a series on those as well, since it's a really educational, nice sort of set for that, of like different leaf grades. And this one's like the one for the blend of all of them, which is pretty nice. And then also sometimes I feel like the teapot's kind of not getting too hot on the top. With this setup, I can just pour a slight bit of water over the top of it like that, sort of get it going. It also does look pretty cool. But yeah, it kind of does make it hot on the top as well. Just to sort of like ensure that the heat's kind of relevant throughout the whole pot, same temperature. And probably just a bit more. So then yeah, I just do this every time just to make sure. This is really the only teapot where I use this for, so it's really not too much of a hassle. But as I said before, Shou Pu'erh is definitely my daily drinking tea. So I will use this setup basically almost every day or more. So it's going pretty good though. So this is the third and final cup. Probably not too much is going to change with this one taste-wise. And then brewing-wise, all the way up until the end of this tea, there's really not too much of a difference. It's all about just getting it set up and then adding more time for each steep as you steep it out. But other than that, it stays relatively the same. And for this tea, you're really not changing the temperature as much. I just go with a full boil, and it doesn't really get higher than that, and there's no point in making it lower. So that's kind of specific for Pu'erh tea. There are other teas where it kind of does make more of a difference, even for Shou Pu'erh. So I'll be probably discussing those in another video when I'm drinking something like that. Because I do have like a bunch of other teas I plan on using for these videos, including some Shou Pu'erh and green teas, and maybe more of these as well. Although for Shou Pu'erh, I really do sort of enjoy them all the same way. So I'm feeling this might be my only video on the series about this. So this is my final cup. Gonna see if I can finish it relatively quick without burning myself. I'm actually surprised it's not getting too hot, which is really nice. Because I like the teas to be able to enjoy them and not have to like be careful of burning myself or anything. I can have some relatively decent sized sips of this one. But thanks for watching. That's it for this video. Hoping to make another one sometime soon on another tea that I enjoy. So probably will be a green tea or something like that. So I'll see you guys then.